Hey, what is up, entrepreneurs, and welcome back to the channel. So I get a lot of emails every single week, something dealing with some kind of tech issue, but a lot of times it's been revolving around one of you entrepreneurs wanting to switch one of the camera brands that you're using, mainly from a Canon camera, something like the Canon M50, to the Sony a6400, especially as I've navigated that. I've seen a lot of you guys also asking, considering yeah, I want some more things, I want a few more features. What cameras would you suggest? Or, hey, I'm looking to upgrade to the Sony a6400 and switch brands from a Canon M50. What would you suggest? And honestly, for majority of you guys that I have talked with, and I wanted to specifically create a video dedicated to this so that I can better serve all of you all with this question, I think still for the most of you, that would be revolving around staying with Canon. And so in this video, I'm going to be talking about why I would suggest that for you and for your company if you're considering switching from Canon or the Canon M50 or similar cameras to the Sony a6400. Welcome back to Entre Women TV, and on this channel I help you simplify the video creation process so that you can create more videos and connect with those that need you the most. If it's something that you're into, definitely consider subscribing. So let's talk about the decision to switch from something like specifically the Canon M50 to the Sony a6400. And let's be honest, a lot of times when we're buying cameras, when we're watching a lot of our favorite YouTubers or tech channels or whatever, or just enough to help us make a decision, we're usually basing that decision around that person's experience, the footage that we're seeing in the videos that we're watching, and the fact that we feel like if they can get a look like that, surely I can get that kind of a look and have really professional looking videos. And as soon as a new camera comes out and they more highly recommend that, or that they switch, we're buying that person's excitement, not necessarily so much so because we finally have found something to better meet our needs. And so knowing that and understanding that everybody's use case is going to be a little bit different, everybody's expertise and experience is going to be a little bit different, and that's going to impact the kind of footage that you'll be able to get more quickly out of when you first unbox that camera and get it into your space and start recording videos. And so a lot of people have bought the Canon M50. It's a camera that I still have and love, and it's one that I honestly still recommend to a lot of people, as well as other Canon cameras. So despite my personal decision for my business and the things that I'm using, I've switched brands to predominantly using Sony cameras, not choosing to move forward into that Canon R or RF lineup, then I've just decided that that's something that I want to do. But honestly, for a lot of people, there's some things that you honestly should consider. So let's talk about those. So the first thing that I would say why you probably should stay with a Canon camera or the brand of cameras is simply because of the ease of use. Honestly, Canon makes some of the easiest cameras for you to use. They have screens that you can touch and really adjust the settings like you would want to, and that you're most commonly and familiar with, like when you use your smartphone. And so when you need to change the setting or you want to experiment and see what that setting does, you're going to be really comfortable with being able to touch the screen and doing that. So when you switch to something like the Sony a6400, you're not going to be able to touch the screen and just change the settings. You're using the dials and the buttons and the things like that. You don't need to dig all the way through the menus to be able to change some of your basic and common settings, the same ones like you would on a Canon camera, but that slight difference is enough to either frustrate some people or not be that big of a deal. And so you really want to know if the switch is something that is important to you, or doing things like that for ease of use is important to you. The other thing is that the menu systems, you will hear somebody that has come from a Canon camera or a Panasonic camera mention how terrible the menu systems are comparative to what they're used to. And it's honestly the same experience I've found as when you switch from like Android or Apple or vice versa, or you're switching from Mac or PC or vice versa. And so I've made the switch on both fronts, from using an Android phone to an iPhone, from using a PC to a Mac. And that experience was equally as uncomfortable as it would be, I would imagine, the other way around. When you have years and years of experience or comfort level, or even just months with a specific brand or type of anything, that switch is going to be a little bit more difficult. So what I honestly suggest is it's the same learning curve either way. Especially if you're just getting started and you're completely new to video altogether, you just like, what should be the first camera? Obviously, like I said, Canon is going to be easier. But if you know yourself, you know you have pretty quick turnaround time as far as your learning speed and your capacity for patience just to be able to learn video, then either way, the learning curve is the same. It's just a matter of what you're getting familiar with. Honestly, I've used my Sony camera so long now that, and just consistently almost every single day for some reason or another, that when I switch back even to a camera as simple as the Canon M50, it takes me a minute and it may be a little difficult to figure out and remember where a basic setting is to go in the menu and change. Whereas with my Sony camera, my muscle memory is already kicked in and I'm used to it. So it's not that big of a deal. And I actually find things faster in the Sony camera than I do in the Canon camera. And that has nothing to do with other than the things that you're using consistently on a regular basis, you're used to using. And so it takes some time to get used to stuff. And so it's the same type of learning curve. So depending on your patience level and knowing yourself and what frustrations you have or how fast you need to move, or potentially if you're handing this camera off to somebody that you work with, if you're getting somebody to be your full-time videographer that you need to train, then you want to consider their learning curve as well, not just yours, because what's easy for you to do and simple to do is not always easy the other way around. So the learning curve is a learning curve just the same. You just don't want to keep going around and around and then make a circle and then you're just completely lost. It's not helpful to anybody. The other thing is that lens options. A lot of people don't consider the lens options that you actually do and should take into consideration when you are switching brands. Now, if you are switching from something like Canon to Sony specifically, like we're talking about in this video, then you'll realize that the prices are very different. But then too, the quality I found is also very different. And it's the same Walmart mentality, or I always talk about, when I say Walmart mentality, I'm talking about the TVs specifically. If you're going to go into Walmart and you're going to buy a TV, they have TVs all the way from $98 to $998. And I know there probably is more expensive ones out there, especially as you get into the curved screens and stuff like that. But when you are going over your friend's house or somebody's coming to your house and they see you have already purchased whatever big TV, they're not comparing what your stuff looks like to, oh man, you really should have got that next model up and that would have looked great for the Super Bowl. Nobody cares. Like, they only like what they're seeing because that's all that they can compare to is what they're seeing. It's not until you get on these YouTube videos and you have people zooming in 400% to look at this small thing or that small thing that it even really matters. The one thing you have to consider when it comes to image quality and the lenses is, like, one is the price, but when it comes to the quality, or if you're comparing one to the other, you may hear people say and mention, which I found to be true personally, the Canon lenses are very sharp in the RF lineup, but some of the other ones may not so much. But when you come to the Sony lineup, the lenses are extremely sharp and they do a really good job. And so background blur, that kind of stuff is going to be specific to the lenses, not so much so the camera. Low light capabilities even is going to be specific to, at that point, it will be predicated, and let's say just say 50-50, somewhat on the sensor, somewhat on the lenses, because the better the lens, the easier it is for the camera to be able to add additional light. But at the same time, it's going to be predicated on the sensor's performance. And I've found that even in the cheapest Sony camera, they are sharper, clearer, and better in lower light situations than I found with, for an example, like a camera like the Canon M50. Now, if you're getting something like the RF, you're moving from like an APS-C or crop censored camera, and you're going to be moving into something like full frame, then you honestly can't go wrong. There's honestly no bad cameras out there. I don't care what brand that you pick. There's no such thing as a bad camera these days. It's just simply predicated on preference and the things that are most important to you. But price is going to be a huge difference. 10 to 18 millimeter lens, like you would see for, like most people would use for vlogging, comparing one brand to the other, then you're looking at maybe something that could be like $300 or even maybe as cheap as $150 used on the Canon lineup. Whereas when you go to Sony, I've seen these lenses like $600 to $800, or just, you know, it can be pretty ridiculous, even $400 or something like that. It can be a bit much just for a simple lens. So for whatever reason, Sony charges a premium on their lenses, but they have cheaper ones that are available. It may not have lens stabilization in it. It just depends on that specific one, but they have a lot of third-party brand lenses as well. So you can find some relatively good priced lenses. Again, it's just going to be specific to what you're wanting to create. And finally, as I close up this video, Honestly, again, the thing we have to really remember and be honest with ourselves about is that we're buying somebody's experience and their joy that we see in a video and the quality that they're able to produce. And we really need to take into consideration that person's experience and expertise with using the tool consistently over time, or just being in the camera space consistently over time, that there is the reason and contributing to why they get the camera and they can have it look really good, whether it's for photos or for video, right out of the box. And when you or I picked up the camera for the first time after we watched the video and bought it on Amazon, had it rush shipped to the house even faster than the 2-day delivery, and we're like, why do my videos not look that much better than my phone? It's going to deal with skill. So you still got to put in the time to learn the actual tool. So do I think you should switch from Canon to Sony? It honestly is not up to me. It's going to be up to you. It's just a matter of, what do you prefer? Do you want a camera that is going to have a whole lot more features, maybe a little bit more expensive lenses, but also too, the quality is there, and you know, maybe have to deal with the learning curve if you're switching. If you're just getting started, it won't make much of a difference because you still have to learn the system at all. I didn't find that conversion very hard, so it's like I'm really concerned and curious with what a lot of the hang up is, other than just getting used to it. It doesn't take long to get used to either. So I'm not sure what that's all about. But if you just want a very, very simple, easy to use camera, you don't have to think a lot as far as the things that you're considering when you're looking at, you know, the stuff you need to do on your camera, then a camera like the Canon M50 is just fine. Or the Canon R or RP is just fine. Yeah, it's not that impressive on paper, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. Like when you're shooting a video just like this, they're only looking at you at that moment. They're not going to compare and zoom in for it. They're not doing all that. They're coming for you and the information and the value that you have. So I think we should always keep that top of mind and priority when we're looking and comparing cameras and things like that. But if you make the switch, then congratulations on whatever you buy, because the biggest thing is just creating content and creating more. So hopefully this video was a little bit helpful in helping you make a better decision. Not so much so because I'm comparing one spec to another, or I'm outright telling you to buy this over that, but just helping you to put the priorities where they probably should be when it comes to buying a camera or switching, so that you aren't buying a camera and then you see how expensive the lenses they are, and then you're just like, oh, this was a bad purchase. Or, you know, not paying attention to the fact that, you know what, I really don't want to learn a whole bunch. I want to just stick to what I'm used to. You probably want to stick with Canon. So hopefully this video helped you out. But with that, my friends, a little passion, I'll see you on the next video here on Entre Women TV. Take care.